Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Hidden Wealth TV, the show that's dedicated to helping you discover and uncover your hidden wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by Chuck Oliver. He is the founder and wealth strategist at Hidden Wealth Solution. Chuck, my friend, it's always good to see you. How are you this week?
I'm doing great, Kristen. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is one of my favorite times each week because you jam-pack each of these shows with so much value for our viewers at home, and I know you've put together another great show. I'm excited.
Looking forward to it.
All right.
Jam-packed is probably key there.
Yes, all right. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking today about the difference between financial planning and retirement planning. Have you ever thought or realized that there is a key difference there? And you know, Chuck, I think to set up the context for today's discussion, a lot of folks are familiar with the accumulation phase.
Right.
You've been working, you've been putting away your hard-earned money, you've been saving and doing a great job of it. That's the accumulation phase. But you and I both know that there is a very important shift that happens when someone is nearing, approaching, and entering retirement because we go from accumulation to distribution. So not understanding that difference can really derail your retirement. So that's what we're dedicating this show to today.
In fact, that's one of the chapters of one of my former books is Shift Happens.
Yes, oh, I like that. Shift happens.
And that
yes,
shift, right, is going from that accumulation to distribution phase, and a lot of people aren't ready for it.
Right, yeah. But that is what you specialize in doing. So talk a little bit about what makes you different in this space from what maybe a lot of folks are familiar with, which might be on more the accumulation side of things.
Yeah. So what we did, we kind of filled the void of where we saw things were missing. Probably one of the best areas that we found, unfortunately, which is probably the area that we found were suffering the most, was from tax. And so by building this wealth optimization team, right, where we can bring in CFAs, CFPs, tax attorneys, CPAs, and really get to the heart of the matter of targeted risk, institutionally managed portfolios, to specialized indexing strategies, to basically helping people make that transition from accumulation to distribution and understand that it's a whole nother game. It's a whole nother game when you make that transition, and a lot of people are not aware of that till they have to become aware of it, and then sometimes it's too late because they have kind of all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Well, and that's the tragedy, I think, for a lot of folks because they've done what they were told to do, right? For example, maybe you've saved a ton of money in your workplace retirement plan, and it used to be that kind of set it and forget it, right? You just put the money away, and then you hope when you get to retirement, you're going to have enough. But a strategy of hope is not a strategy. You want to know that you know for sure that you have a holistic plan in place that's going to be able to help you have your money last as long as you do. So talk a little bit about the difference between what we like to say the big box firms, the approach that they take with this versus your holistic, comprehensive approach, and why that's so important.
Sure. So it's interesting. Some of our folks have been with us for almost 20 years. And knowing that we wanted to specialize in something different than what everybody else was doing, it started, and I've got an amazing team. It really started with our client concierge, who actually started as a client.
Okay.
And as her and her husband were transitioning from the accumulation to distribution phase, she learned the distinct differences. And what's great about Debbie is she's our client concierge first point of contact. So she relates to every person she speaks to because she is that person.
Right. She's lived that firsthand.
She's lived it.
She knows it. Right.
And she saw that transition of going from, let's just say, one of the big box stores of a son-in-law who was pretty high up ranking and said, this is going to be a very difficult Thanksgiving because we realize that we've outgrown kind of this traditional accumulation phase that only that can be supported through our son-in-law. We need to make this transition, obviously, to what's going to support us and get us through. So having all those facets covered, I think the big part of that is, and I talk about the key three I've written about in my books, right? Tax elimination, income maximization, and lifestyle and legacy preservation. That's not just general financial planning. In the big box stores, as we've talked about, right, they're very limited in scope because it's really all about just assets under management. Let's just accumulate your money, and then there's really no game plan as far as what to do with it. And it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Exactly. Well, and we've said on the show before, how you make a decision in one area of your financial life does and will affect all the others. This is why it is so important to look at things from a comprehensive, holistic point of view. And to your point, it's not that these people who work for big box firms, they're not bad people. They are doing what is within their scope to do. A lot of them aren't even allowed to talk about tax planning, for example, and we've talked about that in previous shows as well.
In fact, we've brought some of those people on our team. So we've got folks that I could go through a litany of names, and every viewer would know who I'm referring to. And they said, Chuck, we were so restricted. In fact, we can talk about all the big ones, right? And they'll say, look, we can't even really make recommendations. We can't make adjustments. We need to just let people know that they just got to kind of stick it out.
Right.
And unfortunately, that may not bode well for somebody who's making that transition from accumulation to distribution, because time is not on their side at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to go back and just hit on the key 3 again.
Yeah.
So the first thing you mentioned was tax elimination.
Yeah, it's helping people understand that the greatest expense they're going to have for most of our clients, strong savers, high or former high income earners, is they make that transition. They're not really thinking about the tax, because it was typically always payroll deducted. Now, we work with a number of business owners, and they have a very different perspective.
Right.
But when you have a payroll withdrawn, it's not as obvious as when you're staring at some of the examples I've used or written about in my books, or we've even discussed, that sometimes people are going to give up a third of what they're distributing. So if you have to take a much higher gross number to now get to your needed net number, and we've got runaway inflation with this drunken sailor spending that we're experiencing, people are like, wow, like this is going to be an issue, and I need to do something about it.
And so a lot of what you focus on is eliminating those unnecessary taxes.
And that directly translates into the income maximization.
The next one, yeah.
So if you can get the Uncle Sam out of the way, right, the silent business partner, then you're going to have more discretionary, right? And I talk about kind of the pyramids of planning, right? So you want something that's going to cover the essentials, right? Things that you're going to have everyday expense,
right?
Utilities, gas, groceries, green fees, et cetera. And then you're going to have, well, green fees may be a little discretionary, but then you're going to have your discretionary, right? And those are things obviously you want to do beyond typical things, maybe a special anniversary trip or visiting your grandkids or what have you. And then really legacy. And so when you can have income maximization, especially if you can eliminate, a quarter to a third of going out the window to Uncle Sam, you're going to have more that you're able to preserve, right? Which that turns into lifestyle and legacy preservation. So live more, as we like to say, and leave more.
I like that. Live more and leave more. That's amazing. Well, if someone's watching today and they're going, I want to know how to do these things. I want to know how to eliminate tax, maximize my income, and make sure that I am leaving the kind of legacy I want to leave. What would you say to that individual?
We know a lot of people. In fact, they've said, Chuck, we've waited, we've resisted. We kind of almost for 4 years, sometimes on my national radio program, they'll say, gosh, I waited 10 years. I can't believe I waited 10 years. And so if you're out there and you're not really comfortable and where you want to be comfortable, especially if you're somebody kind of contemplating, I'm kind of getting I'm within kind of that 5-year window of transitioning from accumulation to distribution, or maybe you're in it and you're trying to figure out, right, a better route, right? Then contact us, right? Don't be afraid. It's a conversation. We conduct what we call a personal wealth blueprint. We can identify taxation, the elimination of taxation, income maximization, lifestyle legacy preservation, and it's about retirement planning, not just financial planning.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck, thank you so much. I know that several people are going to be wanting to call and take advantage of the opportunity to meet with you and your team so that you at home can get your own complimentary personal wealth blueprint. And so to do that, it's so easy. All you need to do is just call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-837-3652, or you're also welcome to scan that QR code. Simply take out your smartphone, point it at that QR code. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few simple questions, and then a member of the Hidden Wealth Solution team will reach out to you to set up your complimentary appointment with Chuck and the team at Hidden Wealth Solution that way as well. When we come back, we're going to be diving more deeply into this important subject of income planning, specifically retirement income planning. Do you have a solid plan in place to know where you're going to get reliable, ongoing income that's going to last you for the rest of your life? Stay with us. We'll have more after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back. You're watching Hidden Wealth TV, the show that's dedicated to helping you discover and uncover your hidden wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm here with Chuck Oliver, the founder and wealth strategist at Hidden Wealth Solution. We have been talking today about the difference between financial planning and specifically retirement planning. And one of the most crucial pillars of engaging in successful retirement planning is it's all about income, isn't it, Chuck? I mean, literally, I've heard it said that it's not so much how much money you've been able to accumulate over your lifetime, although obviously that plays a factor. It can be very important, but it's your ability to take that amount that you have saved up and convert it into a reliable, ongoing income stream for yourself that's going to last you for the rest of your life. So let's dive into this important subject of income planning.
Sure. You know, we talk about which account, which amount, right? And you look at this concept of indexing versus investing. And we find a lot of people, especially coming in from the big box store brokerages, they pretty much just have one play in the playbook, right? And that's kind of, hey, let's go more conservative to bonds, you know, if things get rocky, or let's pull from, you know, let's kind of go that traditional 60-40, if you will.
60-40, yeah. Right? If you've heard that term, right? That you have 60% in equities, 40% in bonds. It's that cookie cutter approach.
Right. And boy, that blew up in a lot of people's faces, unfortunately, during, you know, last year. I mean, history was made. I mean, you had bonds, some bonds we saw in portfolios that we analyzed that were down 20%.
Yes.
And that's usually the safe haven, right? When the stock market's not doing well in equities, people typically default to bonds.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of now bond asset class replacement designs that are out there, and there's been a lot of new innovative tools. And like we talked about, using 20th century strategies in a 21st century is not working out. You got to change, right? If you want a difference, you have to change. And in fact, Einstein said, you know, we're a product of our. The world is a product of its own thinking. If we want to change our world, we have to change our thinking. And a lot of people don't take the time, right, to think outside of their traditional thinking.
Or they don't even know it's possible.
Right.
That's what I love, is you help people think outside the box, and you're like, this is actually the rules of the game that you're playing that you didn't even know existed, right?
Exactly. Hidden wealth, right? Helping people discover and uncover their hidden wealth. And this has been kind of the transformation. So when we meet with a client, and this is so important, one of the first things we look at, as we said in the earlier part of the program, we look at taxes, because taxes will have a cause and effect on literally everything else. But then we want to look at then where are you going to draw income? And if you can have this contrast between indexing and investing, where indexing enables people in kind of a different engineered structure. Sometimes they own the same exchange traded funds that they could get in their big box brokerage accounts, but by having it with a floor of protection without an unlimited cap of growth, right? Where they can actually have unlimited potential of earning. Well, I think I've shared with you in the past, but we had a former engineer client that we did a 30-year look-back study for, and he said, you know, Chuck, the significance, and we look at it two ways, is number one, going from retail to institutional money management is a pretty big transformation and learning curve for people, because they don't realize there's a difference. You know, putting you in, somebody just being put into funds versus just managing, obviously, the significance of managing portfolios. That's where the former SEC chairman, Steve Wallman, basically created the decimalization system, right, or the fractional share concept of our stock market. And by having that, right, the ability to learn where you can have more positions, it doesn't dilute the return, it dilutes the risk in many cases, not in all cases, but it also props up the potential of the return. So if we can go from retail to institutional, this is what we help people really learn, right, is that significant difference of going from retail to institutional. Because typically you can find more return in many cases, less risk and less cost. Now we've got that understanding, right, in the blueprint. Now when we can then layer what the appropriate amount is to maybe replace bonds, since they aren't the things that they used to be of the past, now what we found, especially in that look-back study, was in the years that the market was down, if we can pull from something that has no negative, right, direct correlation to the losing of the market, where we have a floor, and then in the years that the market was up, what we showed is then by pulling income for retirement planning income purposes, the client's money went 2.5 times further. Wow. Not even layering over all the tax strategy, just the idea of which account and which amount.
Right. And there's so much that goes into a retirement income planning strategy of, you said, which account, which amount, what order do I withdraw money from, right?
I've said that a lot. Yeah, it's not just understanding the different strategies, it's understanding the importance of the ordering of the different strategies can make a huge difference. And good examples of that would be the ordering of the decisions around when you're going to elect Social Security, when you're going to maybe do Roth conversion.
Yep.
All these things have cause and effect, and a lot of people haven't thought through them because they're using 20th century strategies, right, in a 21st century reality of retirement.
Talk briefly, because since you mentioned Social Security, because when Social Security was invented, it was never meant to be taxed. Well, now a lot of folks are looking at having 85% of their benefit could be taxed. So how does that play when you're engaging in tax planning with someone looking at these different streams of income and helping them navigate that?
You know, we talked about RMDs in the past, and some people aren't familiar with required minimum distributions and the impact of that on their retirement. I see a lot of people failing to really consider the impact of taxes to their Social Security. And not just the maze of trying to figure out, like, when should I file, when should my wife file, et cetera, but wow, we had a client that said the other day, which is why you never want to assume, he said, you mean I'm going to owe tax on my Social Security after all that Social Security tax I paid in? And we ran a Social Security, what we call maximization plan, and we actually have someone on our team who's actually got an advanced designation in Social Security planning. And it was fascinating. The projected Social Security tax for this couple would have been a little over $10,000 a year.
Wow.
They have longevity in their families on both sides. So let's just say there's 30 years of that 10,000. That's 300. It's going to be in excess of 300 grand. But get this, if you would have saved that roughly $10,000 a year over that same 30-year period, it exceeds $1 million, Kristen.
Wow.
Over $1 million mistake by not understanding retirement planning around Social Security.
Talk about uncovering some hidden wealth.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Helping you discover and uncover it.
Yeah. Well, I know that another huge concern that's on so many folks' minds when it comes to retirement planning, and rightly so, is the cost of health care. That is, the costs are absolutely astronomical. Touch on that, if you will, of how you build that into this income plan for people when you're working with them.
Well, we can integrate and help people understand that there's more stability and less wobble by bringing indexing in to complement the overall plan. Some of those designs depend on their engineering, actually have more of what we call kind of a hybrid long-term care element that allows them to, gosh forbid, if they can't perform 2 or more of the 6 daily living activities, and I took a mother through 4 assisted living facilities and through breast cancer, that is an expensive endeavor, to say the least, not just emotionally and physically, but wow, financially. And that's what we're hearing more and more people reaching out, because I think they're experiencing family members going through that, because no one ever thinks it's going to happen to them. You ask a couple on opposite sides of the room, which one of you thinks is going to need long-term care, and everybody's pointing to the other side. Having that as a backup, and we like to say it's better to have those benefits and not need them than need them and not have them. So if you can design something that'll allow you to not just build something specifically to cover what inevitably may happen, but if it doesn't, you don't want to kind of throw money down a hole. But to have something that has that as a backup solution, that gives people a lot of peace of mind. And those can be built in kind of this structure of indexing around special design insurance, which is one of the 2 income sources that will not tax your Social Security, Roth IRA being the other, or in some of these really kind of more advanced hybrid annuities that have been designed out there that aren't your grandma's old annuity, that people are really learning, like, wow, these things can really complement what I'm doing and complement in more areas than one.
Right. And what you're talking about are different financial tools.
Right.
I mean, you have a giant toolbox, and the key is you have to discover and know what are the right tools for you to accomplish your financial goals, and that's what you help people do day in and day out.
We do. We tell people, look, you can take a saw to a job that requires a hammer, and you may get that job done, but not near as efficiently if you've just brought the right tool to the right job.
Right, for sure. Well, and I love that because you look at things from that comprehensive, holistic point of view, you are really able to help folks generate greater tax efficiency throughout their full financial plan.
Yeah, if we don't get the taxes right, listening at home, if we don't get the taxes right, everything else is going to be inferior. And it's fascinating for us to see the number of people that will come back and say, you know, we've talked to our planner for 3 decades, 2 decades, or our 5th one, and we can't get anybody to comment on taxes. Folks, if taxes aren't part of the equation in your conversation, I can assure you they're going to be part of the equation of your retirement. And this is where people really need to take a look at the significant difference between knowing whose audience you are. Are you a financial planning audience, or are you now at that stage of going from accumulation distribution as a retirement planning audience?
For sure. Well, if you're listening at home and you're going, I would love to have Chuck's help and the team of Hidden Wealth Solution help me navigate this important shift from the accumulation to distribution years and be able to help walk you through all these things that we're talking about today, we encourage you, pick up the phone, call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-837-3652. This is simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how Chuck and the team can help you. We have a lot more to cover. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Hidden Wealth TV. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Chuck Oliver, the founder and wealth strategist at Hidden Wealth Solution. We are talking today about how you can discover and uncover your hidden wealth, specifically as it relates to preparing you to shift from the accumulation phase of your saving years to the distribution phase. And we've talked about how there really is a difference, Chuck, between financial planning and retirement planning. And the danger of folks not understanding that difference is it can really derail your retirement. One of the things I love about doing the show with you is you are just a wealth of knowledge and provide awesome strategies that so many people have maybe never even heard of. And I just learned a newer strategy that I had never heard about from you. So I would love for you to share that with folks.
Sure, it's referred to as the IMQ, in marriage quadro. So quadro is qualified domestic relations order. Sadly, some people may recognize that terminology. Typically, it's done in a divorce proceeding. But our legal team that we work with very closely is actually basically found that it doesn't specify that you have to actually be getting a divorce to leverage this. And what is this? Well, if you've got a 401k and maybe you're not 59 and a half, or maybe you're just getting to retire and you're maybe closer to the required minimum distribution age, but your spouse, let's say, is maybe many years younger than you or several years younger than you, or you just want to get access as a family to your 401k before all the restrictions, right, prevent you from doing that.
Right.
What an in-marriage quadro does is it allows, let's say, the wife who's working, let's say she has a very, strong 401k savings pattern and it's a large balance, and maybe she's very limited in the options in that 401k, and typically we find that that's the case.
That is the truth, yeah, for so many people.
It's more expensive in many cases as we've analyzed them, and typically you have very limited options.
Right.
Well, she can actually transfer her 401k to her husband as an IRA. It's a direct rollover, and there's no tax consequence to do so. And now the family can control that sum of money and now have more choice and control, so they have options, right? Wow. And that gives them a head start, maybe to start Roth converting, something that may not have been able to have exposure to, obviously, elsewhere. And then more choices. Where can they put that money and maybe have a better option as it relates to more return, less risk, less exposure, using a complementary kind of indexing to investing institutionally kind of combination. Basically just gives them access to where most people don't realize they have access.
Wow, so an IMQ, in marriage quadro.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, why aren't more people talking about this, Chuck?
Well, it's fascinating. We had a client that said, man, I went back, and I won't mention the big box store brokerage, but they said there's no such thing. And we had I think of clients that we've helped with that strategy. Both husband and wife had very large 401ks, and they said, you know what? We analyzed their 401k. Our team of fiduciaries. We went through everything. And we said, look, you don't have great choices here, and of the choices you have, there's several far superior outside of your limitations.
Yes. Yep.
So we did in-marriage quadros on each, so we kind of reversed them. So we got hers to his and his to hers, and that allowed them to control about $1.5 million that they have successfully managed, and we've helped them with that management do far more and protect them more. And we've really untaxed a lot of that before they're obviously going to have that exposure.
Right. Well, and I have to wonder, Chuck, I would assume that something like an IMQ is not really touted at some of these other companies, because how are they compensated? They're compensated for managing your large sum of money. Do you really think they want that money transferred elsewhere? That's probably part of the problem, right?
Have you not noticed all of these articles? It's fascinating. I've talked about this in my radio program. All these articles on why you should just leave your money in your 401k after you retire, right? There's been this mass exodus And obviously they're losing a lot of market share. And so no, if they don't like people just rolling over the 401k when they're well within their rights to do that, they
Right.
don't want them to roll them over early.
Yes, for sure. But it's probably in your best interest to do so for so many reasons. That brings me another point. We haven't talked about this yet, so I hope you don't mind me asking you, but how often do you find that folks have left old workplace retirement plans behind, and how are you able to help them consolidate those plans?
They'll
once
either,
they've-
yeah, they'll still either refer to their current IRA as their old 401k, or they actually haven't moved their old 401k. So we see quite a bit of that actually. In fact, we just did a conference call. Our team just did a conference call just recently, and what our client thought was what they had access to, because they were unfortunately. I know a lot of people think the economy is vibrant, and many of the people that realize the reality of this economy realize that's not the case. So this gentleman was laid off after 28 years.
Wow.
And he just didn't even know his options. And sadly, not only that, but by the time you get on the phone, right, with some of these departments, our team does that as a three-way call, as a concierge service, because most of the people you're talking to know less, right,
Yes.
than
Yeah.
the people that are running the plan
Right.
know very little. In fact,
Yep.
most of the time our client knows more than them.
And I love that you're able to help folks do that, because I'm sure that can be really overwhelming for people, especially if you've worked multiple jobs. You might have left that money behind because you didn't know what to do with it, or you thought that that was the right thing to do because that's being touted right now. And yet you can help people, take away the overwhelm, take away the confusion.
Yeah, especially, some people think it's a taxable event. We had a couple the other day that said, so if we roll over our old 401k, like, how are we addressing the taxes? And we're like, well, we're not going to roll it over to expose you to tax. We're going to roll it over and then help you mitigate and protect it against tax.
Right.
And so, you never want to assume. But yeah, that's,
Sure.
people are very confused, right? I've talked about this. If you're somebody at home, I say this all the time, and I think sometimes it falls on deaf ears, but I would encourage you to really think about it. And if this is you, a lot of people are feeling very confused, right? Especially when you see what the market's done, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their money. That makes we see people kind of become isolated,
Yes.
right? Almost like, hey, I'm on an island, I'm not really
Feel
sure what to do.
alone.
I'm
Right.
alone.
Yep.
And that gives people a feeling of being powerless, right? What are we supposed to do? Maybe it's just better we don't do anything. And if that's you, don't sit there on the sidelines, because that's going to be very costly. So what people are looking for, to your point, Kristen, they're looking for direction.
Yes.
Direction, confidence, right? Because direction will build confidence and new capability. And that can only be done for people that have gone before you through leadership, relationship, and creativity.
Well, I know that's what you do, is you empower people with the right knowledge, the right education, so that they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. Awesome. Well, Chuck, always great to see you. Thank you
Great
for
to see
being
you.
here. Thank you so much for watching. Again, that number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 844-837-3652. We encourage you, pick up the phone, do something that your future self will thank you for, and start today on your path to discovering and uncovering your hidden wealth. We'll see you next time.